It was an emotional weekend for Ngāti Maru as Treaty of Waitangi Negotiations Minister Andrew Little met with mana Whenua at Te Upoko o Te Whenua marae at Tarata to deliver a Crown apology for its horrific actions against iwi. The Ngāti Maru rohe is centred on the inland Waitara River Valley east of the Whanganui River and its tributaries and west to Mount Taranaki. The apology took place almost 2 years after the deed of settlement was signed due to pandemic restrictions. Ngāti Maru lead negotiator Anaru Marshall joins us now from Te Papai o Ia. Tēnā koe matua, thank you so much for joining us today.
Tēnā koe, Neil. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. The deed of settlement was signed last February and delayed, obviously, until mana Whenua could be present. Were many whānau able to make it home for the ceremony?
Yeah, because of COVID, of course, we had to postpone actually coming together as an iwi, and so we've been waiting a long time for this opportunity to meet with the Crown and have the Crown read the apology to us. So hundreds of Ngāti Maru came home for the weekend. There were, building up to this event, we've had 6 weeks of wānanga and kawe mate and reconnecting with people moving into the space, and so many who couldn't make it this weekend made sure that they came to those wānanga and made their presence felt, and then wished us all the best for this weekend.
Anaru, what an incredibly special time. It's been a long journey to this point. What were some of the emotions that came out over the weekend?
Yeah, it was interesting, Neil. It's one of those situations where there's a lot of sadness because we were reflecting back on how did we arrive here, and it's through trauma and actions of the Crown, and so there's a lot of sadness, grieving, but also joy in coming together as an iwi again and actually just being in the space and having something to celebrate, which was actually some closure. Gaining some closure out of this whole process. We've been in this settlement process now for quite some time and in negotiations for 6 years, and so it was good to be able to come together as an iwi and cry and laugh and just reconnect. That was the big thing, I think.
I feel it would be nice for a lot of New Zealanders to be there and feel what it's like for the people and to go through this process, to really feel the emotion tied up in something like this. Now, the Crown acknowledged a number of acts and omissions of the Treaty of Waitangi in regards to its treatment of Ngāti Maru. Help us to understand some of those atrocities that took place for Ngāti Maru.
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing, Neil, is the raupatu. And that was the first action by the Crown against Ngāti Maru, was the confiscation of 118,000 hectares or half of our rohe in the first instance. And so that was a severe impact that it had on the iwi. Confiscation and then evictions over period of time, various other mechanisms that were employed by the native land courts, and also deeds of cession and various mechanisms that the Crown of those days was using to alienate Māori from their whenua. And so it was all of those things. There were other things that Minister Little apologised for on Saturday, and that was the desecration of some of our wāhi tapu, where they had put roads straight through Urupa. And I guess the purpose of that is to further alienate our people from their land and where their tupuna were buried.
Anaru, how much land was that again?
In the raupatu, we lost 118,000 hectares. There's a total of 220,000 hectares in our rohe, and the rest kind of went in subsequent decades after that initial raupatu, Neil.
So the iwi had most of its land confiscated, severing, as you said, the iwi from its whenua. What is the legacy we're dealing with today from those actions, or some of the legacy?
Yeah, it's huge. When you look at land in those times, it was the economic base. So there was no ability to actually feed oneself, one family, and so dislocation was a huge thing. Our people drifted down the Waitara River into other communities. There was a period of time where we were based at Parihaka, and we all know the story of Parihaka and the subsequent dealings after that. But that dislocation from the economic base of Ngāti Maru really committed our people to a life of poverty. And intergenerational poverty, and the flow-on effect of poverty are all of those things that we're still feeling today. It's lack of quality education outcomes, lack of great or good employment opportunities, and so on and so forth. So that's the legacy of these Crown's actions. And so, yeah, it was right that Minister Little came back and stood on our marae and, fronted to the people and acknowledged all of this had gone on and made that apology. I think the positive that came out of it, though, was the repatriation of that whenua back to our tamariki on the day.
So the settlement includes $30 million, which for some people is a lot of money, but we'll dig into that a little bit. A range of cultural redress and the return of some land titles to the total of 4,500 hectares. Right now, this is from 180,000 hectares. Now this includes the Crown Forest. In reality, this is a tiny portion of land stolen, and this can't make up for intergenerational harm, but it is something that can help to create something for your people, right? So what can this do for the people now?
Yeah, you're right, Neil. It's a fraction of what was taken. But in saying that, the land that came back is a combination of our cultural sites, our special sites, wahi tapu, and also some commercial property as well. And so we're using that as a base to rebuild education and training programs in forestry and in the tai ao. Through this settlement, we've been able to purchase a private training enterprise. Prior to going into negotiations, Neil, our iwi told us we want 4 things: land, education, and education for our tamariki mokopuna, jobs for our people, and care for our environment. And so those are the things that we're focusing on moving forward now. And so gaining the private training enterprise is all about that. And we're also running training forestry and conservation programs for the tai ao as well.
So now we can start to rebuild again. Ngāti Maru lead negotiator, Anaru Marshall, thank you so much for your time today, and congratulations on a well-deserved apology and a way to move forward from the Crown.
Thank you, Neil. Ngā mihi.